Welcome. In this video we will take a look at using RStudio's help menu to help view options for the matrix function, how a matrix function can be used for space allocation, and finally we'll take a look at how to update row and column names of an existing matrix. First, let's view the help documentation for the matrix function. This can be done by first clicking on the Help tab and then over in the search box searching for matrix. Alternatively, you could use ?matrix or help matrix in the console, and the same information would appear in the help screen. Now at the top of the help screen we can see that the matrix function is a part of R's base package, which means that the function is available to use without having to first install a custom R package. We also see that there is a description of the function along with two other related functions, as.matrix and is.matrix, which are a part of a collection of functions like as.vector, is.list, etc. These types of functions are mainly useful in situations where you need to manipulate object types before using these objects as inputs to other functions, or say allow a function you've created to return an error for a user if an incorrect variable type is used as an input. For more details on as and is type of functions, please refer to our online materials for creating your own functions. Next, in the help menu, we see there's also a generic outline for how to use the matrix function. Notice that each input has an equal sign after it, indicating that each has its default setting and are therefore not required as inputs in order to execute the function itself. So it may seem odd, but you can actually call the matrix function without any inputs. Let's go on ahead and try that over in the console, and let's call the variable basket. Now up in the environment window we can see that our new object basket is simply a one-by-one logical with an entry of NA, which we can also view by clicking on the data icon. So if we were to assign something to our basket like a series of values, and let's go on ahead and try that in the console. Basket 1 through 3, say that we were wanting to assign it to specific elements within basket, and let's just come up with some values. So we can see that the environment window updates the change, showing our basket now contains the 3 specified values. We can also see that the view of basket has also updated. Creating these, what I've called baskets, is referred to as space allocation. In later videos you will learn more about space allocation, since creating routines in R usually requires an object to be created first before it can be manipulated, updated, etc. And the importance of this can be seen if we try to assign our values to a variable without first allocating the necessary space. So if instead we were to try to assign these values to, say, basket 2, so if I arrow up I can get my last entry in the console. If I move over, simply type in 2, that would mean I was trying to put these 3 elements into 3 spaces of a variable basket 2, which hasn't been created. We see that R returns an error message. However, notice that the message doesn't explicitly state you have to create basket 2 before you can assign something to it. Instead, you have to think about why basket 2 wasn't found, and then debug the problem. And another note, keep in mind that using different structure types, such as matrices instead of lists, may also allow a larger routine to be more efficient in iterating over its calculations. More on this will be covered in another video as well. The next and final matrix option we'll be addressing in this video is the dim names option, which allows for row and column names to be added directly within the matrix function rather than using additional lines of code to do so, as we illustrated in the previous video. Let's recreate the example vectors of quarterly stock price that we used in that previous video. And let's also execute the multiple lines of code used previously to create the matrix of information. So notice that we used 3 separate lines of code to form the matrix, to assign row names and then to assign column names. Now using the dim names option we can do this in basically one line of code. Okay, so we can see that an error came up because I didn't put in the full line of code. There we go. So we can see that now using dim names, we can directly put in the information for both the row names and the column names. And in this case, I stored that as stocks2, which is going to be exactly the same matrix as we created before. And we can see this if we go on ahead and call stocks, and if we call stocks2, that they are indeed the same matrix. So which is a better way? Well, it depends on the situation. Also, it is useful to know that you can use the former approach to rename columns or rows. So let's assume that we made a mistake and the second column of stocks is supposed to correspond to Q3 instead of Q2. Well, if this were the case, then all we need to do is just reassign the second entry as Q3. So in the previous video, we learned that we could use column names to do this. And if we call upon the same matrix, stocks, and we understand that we only need to change the second column name, you can index into this by using brackets and then assigning your new column name, in this case Q3. Then whenever we call upon stocks again, we can see that indeed it was changed from Q2 to Q3. Now, one last comment before we end the video is that in the dim names option, notice that we use list as the data structure to assign the row and column names. And I knew to use list because if we return over to the help menu and you scroll down to have to locate the information about the option, notice that it says that an empty list is created as null and a list of one as row names. So it's indicating the structure that is necessary to use this as an input. In another video we will cover the structure of lists, but I just wanted to make mention of this before concluding the video. In the next video we will take a look at indexing into a matrix using the rbind and cbind functions to append new information to an existing matrix, as well as why and how to set a column as a factor. We hope that you have found this video useful, and happy coding.